Today we continue on with our NHL Offseason Plan Series. We're now up to the 21st ranked team in the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings. Today we're going to take a look at the 24-25 season, analyze all the things that went well and not so well, plus we're going to take a look at their expectations on what we should see from them between the 2025 NHL Draft, free agency, and the trade market. How will this team move forward this summer to prepare for next season? That's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're continuing on with our NHL Offseason Plan Series. We've worked our way up from Team 32 at the bottom all the way up so far. Now we're on Team 21, and there will be a dedicated video for each and every team throughout the entire NHL, all the way up to one here before we're all said and done, and the offseason gets into the busiest part of it. So for Detroit, we're going to first start with recapping the 24-25 campaign, take a look at how the year went, some key individual stats, compare this year to the previous year and how things changed, either for the better or for the worse. Then we're going to take a look at what to expect in the offseason. So we're looking at their internal business, expiring contracts, cap space, what are they going to be doing at the draft, free agency, trades, all that type of stuff to get ready for next year. So diving into last year's results, they finished with a record of 39, 35, and 8 for 86 points, which was a step back from the previous year. They had 5 fewer points this year than the year before, where they finished with a record of 41, 32, and 9 and 91 points. That year, they just missed the playoffs. They lost out basically on a tiebreaker. They could have got one more point, they would have been in. It came down to the final day of the season, and it was kind of a heartbreaking, crushing thing where they did everything they could in their power, but they fell basically 1 point short. So ultimately, this team was hoping to build upon that and take a step forward, and instead it took a small step back. Analyzing the team stats, they scored 235 goals this year, which was 22nd in the league. They allowed 259, which was 21st in the league. The power play was really good. It was probably the brightest spot on their team, 27%, which was 4th best. The penalty killing, however, dead last, 70.1. That is, well, you can't get much worse. So ultimately, the penalty kill is going to be a major area of focus going into next year. But looking at the goals for and against, they had a major swing here. Goals for were down 43. They scored 278 goals the year before. They dropped to 235. That's a major drop. Obviously, they had a lot of guys the year before, hit some really good numbers, and they had more balance throughout their lineup, and they just didn't have that this past year. So losing 43 goals in the run of the season off your scoring total is pretty significant. Now, on the backside of it, keeping the puck out of the net, they did improve. They went from 274 against down to 259. So that's a 16-goal improvement that they kept out of the net, which, again, it's not super drastically better, but it is a good step in the right direction. Obviously, scoring 43 fewer goals is a much bigger negative impact, though, than what they improved upon defensively. The power play was great. Penalty kill, lots not to be desired there. Goaltending was not the major, downfall of the team, but it certainly stands to improve as well. Cam Talbot came on to be the bulk of the starts here, finished with a record of 21, 19, and 5, 2.93 goals against and a 901 save percentage. So he wasn't, I wouldn't say he was great, but he was kind of hovering around league average. He gave them a chance to win more often than not. Mrazek came over back to Detroit from Chicago. His record throughout the year was 12, 21, and 2, 3.35 and an 891. Of course, that includes his Chicago time. Alex Lyon had a record of 14, 9, and 1, a 2.81 and an 896 save percentage. So, again, the goaltending wasn't their biggest problem, but it certainly wasn't their biggest strength either. So there's certainly room for that to get better, but we're probably looking at the existing tandem remaining. So, they're going to need stronger play out of that position. The scoring leaders on the team was led by Lucas Raymond with 80 points. Alex DeBrincat had a much better season goal-scoring-wise and finished with 70 points. Same with Captain Dylan Larkin at 70. Patrick Kane put out 59, and Mo Sider at 46. Of course, partway through the year, Things were not going well, and they ended up firing head coach Derek Lalonde. So he was gone mid-year. They hired veteran coach Todd McClellan, who came in. And after McClellan was hired, they did get what they call the new coach bump. He came in, made some changes, and they went on a tear for a stretch. But then things kind of fell off, and then they went the complete opposite, and they were pretty bad in the final home stretch part of the season when it was make or break to try to push for a playoff spot. So ultimately, they ended up having a pretty quiet NHL trade deadline, which we know we've heard Captain Dylan Larkin speak out about, that they were kind of disappointed that they didn't get more help. And then Steve Yzerman, when he spoke to the media, basically said that between the prices being high, he didn't feel that the team was in a good enough position to justify spending these high prices to give them the help that they needed. He thought they needed more internally to make that more justifiable and to get that next step into the playoffs. Like he referenced some other teams, like Montreal, for example, who was out of the playoffs for a big chunk of the season and really zoned in here in the second half and after the Four Nation break to get themselves into that last spot. And they didn't go out at the deadline to make any big acquisitions. So clearly, he was using them as an example. And there appears to be a little bit of a disconnect and difference of opinion, you think. And like I said, it sounds like some players are losing their patience with the Yzerman patience. So be curious to see how things go this next year, and if there is any players that may decide that maybe they, I don't know if they're going to want to leave or whatnot. I don't have anything to say that's something they're feeling right now, but it's not good when you feel like there's a disconnect between the different people in the organization. So looking at going into this offseason here, we have a decent amount of cap space, but they also have some interesting players that they need to sign or replace. They have $21.3 million in space, which sounds like a lot, but they need to spread that out over about 5 or 6 players. They have $74 million committed under cap next year with 17 contracts up to a maximum of 23. So you're looking at about 5 or 6 contracts, which was really does leave you with some decent flexibility. They don't have a ton of internal business to look after. So let's take a look now at their RFAs and their UFAs and any contract extensions that may be looming here for this team. On the RFA side, we've got Elmer Soderblom, Jonathan Bergeron, and Albert Johansson. They're probably all going to get signed, but none of those players are going to get long-term deals or overly expensive contracts. So it won't eat away at their cap availability too much. On the UFA side, you've got Jeff Petrie, William Lagesson, Alex Lyon, Tyler Mott, Craig Smith, and of course, Patrick Kane. Now we know Patrick Kane is very likely to return. It sure sounded that way, at least based on how everything was, all the comments between him and Yzerman at the end of season media availability. I suspect Kane's probably going to sign a similar contract to what he just had. It's hard to say exactly what the number is going to be, but I suspect it's probably going to be at most a 2-year deal. I know that last year there were some rumors that he may end up leaving because Yzerman wasn't keen on signing him for more than 1 year. And, after being out of Chicago, going to the Rangers and then coming to Detroit, that he kind of wanted some stability. And, he liked it there. So I think, that, he was kind of looking for more term and whatnot. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a bone of contention or not this year. But at the same time, we'll see how things go. But I do expect Kane to most likely return. And then they said they get some of these RFAs. So that still should leave them with a decent amount of cap space. As far as the other UFA goes, I think there's a pretty good chance that all the other guys probably don't return. Unless maybe Tyler Mott on a league minimum contract or something. I'm not even sure that's something they want to do, but maybe. As far as players that are eligible for extension, I'm not sure we're going to see a whole lot of activity in this category either. You got guys like Vladimir Tarasenko, Peter Mrazek, Cam Talbot, Ben Sherratt, Justin Hall, Eric Gustafsson. I just don't know that there's really players that Yzerman's going to want to extend. Last year, Tarasenko was a UFA signing, played his first year with the team. Didn't have a great season, didn't always feel like a great fit. So it's really difficult to say if he's even, I mean, I wouldn't rule out a Tarasenko trade, to be honest, let alone an extension. So I don't see that happening. Mrazek and Talbot, I would imagine they probably want to play and see how things go before opting for a decision there. I believe Alex Lyon's likely not coming back, so it's going to be down to those two veterans. Sebastian Cossa, I don't know if they really feel like he's ready yet, so, they need to make some decisions, obviously, but I think as far as the other guys goes, like Sherrod Hall, Gustafsson, I'm not really sure any of those guys are really proven to be worth keeping around beyond the current contracts. They might even be moved out sooner. So I'm not sure we're going to really see anything in terms of extensions for players that are already on the roster. At most, you're going to see the RFAs get signed, probably Patrick Kane. That's about it. Otherwise, any business that's conducted, it's going to be players that are currently not with the team. So as far as the top questions facing the franchise right now, like I said, the big one is, are Yzerman and the players and the captain Dylan Larkin on the same page? Is there any, beefs there that's going to cause any issues? I sure hope not. Saw what happened with the Rangers and how things were handled last offseason between Chris Drury and Trouba and all that, and they really set the team back. So hopefully they can kind of all agree on a path here. Ultimately, the boss is Yzerman. The players don't really have a say in all those other decisions, and I hope that that's not a distraction or an issue for them. But as far as Yzerman goes, you have to wonder, one big question I have is he on the hot seat? He's been there for quite some time now, and this team has not been able to get into the playoffs. They've, obviously, the first few years, you weren't really expecting it. Last year, like I said, they were super close. You can't get any closer without missing. And then this year, they've taken a step back. If they don't take a step forward next year, what is that going to mean for him? And to be honest, they're in a tough division. The Atlantic division is hard. And they've got teams that jumped ahead of them this year. Like, look at last year. Like, Detroit was right there. They missed by a single point. And now this year, Ottawa and Montreal surpassed them and get in. And, you're not really expecting those teams to take a step back. At least you wouldn't think. It's always possible. But, you're probably thinking it's not likely because their team's on the rise. The teams that were in the top three are definitely going to see some change. But, the Panthers are looking like they're going to be either Stanley Cup champions again or at the very least a Stanley Cup finalist. So they're going to be a tough team to contend with again. That, could they take a step back? Yeah, maybe, but not to miss the playoffs, you wouldn't think. The Lightning are still really good on paper. And then, of course, the Leafs are bound to see some change too, but I'd be shocked if they were in a playoff team. Boston took a step back in big time this year and missed, finished near the bottom, but are they going to be able to bounce back enough to be a playoff team? I'm not so sure, but we don't know all the moves they're going to make yet. The Sabres have been close, and, it's a tough division. It really is. I can see a possibility where Detroit maybe even improves and still only finishes in like 5th or something, right? Or 6th even. So it's tough. They're going to have their work cut out for them, no doubt. The big thing for me is one of the big questions is, can they revamp this D core to be better? Obviously, like, they have some D there that are not the most desirable anymore that need to go. Whether it's, like I said, you got Petrie, who's a UFA now, he'll move out. But like Sherratt, Hall, Gustafsson, they're all in the final year of their contract. You've got, besides like Mo Seider and Simon Edvinsson, they need to try to revamp that blue line. And that's not going to be easy, and I don't think it's something you can do in 1 year. Like, I know in Buffalo, Bo Byram is supposedly available for trade. He would be a big help there. Again, I don't know what they'd have to offer up, but they need some better D in a bad way. That's by far their biggest weakness, in my opinion. And except with goaltending, it's looking like, as far as like what's the tandem going to look like next year, well, it's pretty well assured, barring a trade, it's going to be Talbot and Mrazek. And, Talbot's been kind of hot and cold the last few years, but but generally pretty average, decent goaltender. But this tandem's getting older again. The depth really isn't there. They moved on from Husso. They moved on from or line, like at least it looks like they are. So I don't know what this team does long term in that position, but they're one struggle or injury away from being really in a tough spot in that position too. I guess, are they going to try to move out a couple of more veterans that aren't really producing? Not like Justin Hall comes to mind. He sat out a lot last year. What about Andrew Kopp? That contract's aging horribly. Is there any way they can try to get out of that contract, either by trade or buyout? I mean, it might get it pricey, but I know Steve Yzerman took a lot of crap for the Jake Wallman trade last year. Attached a pick to move him along, and the San Jose turned that into a much bigger return later. Like, just mind-boggling things. I honestly think that they were lining up to get Trouba, and then at the last minute it didn't happen because he blocked it. So I think there was other things at play there that we don't know the full final details on. As far as free agency goes, like I said, they are going to have not a ton of space, but they're going to have the ability, if they wanted to try to go out and sign a big-time free agent, they could. Will they be one of the teams in on Mitch Marner if he makes it to free agency on July 1st? Wouldn't surprise me that they at very least check into it. I'm not sure if Detroit's a team that would be desirable for Mitch, but they may not want to spend that much on him. I don't know, because I know based on how they've structured their other contracts, he's going to be looking for a lot of money. I don't know that Yzerman is going to be wanting to pay anybody that type of dough. So as much as, you might think maybe they could do it, they have some decent space, but I just don't. I don't see Yzerman doing that. I really don't. So free agency, I think they're going to sign Patrick Kane probably, and other than that, maybe one of the more mid-level UFAs if they make it there. If they could talk to a guy like Nick Ehlers or Brock Besser or somebody, maybe. But it's going to be tough. They've had some iffy UFA signings the last couple of years, so they're going to be careful on that front. And of course, there's the draft. They're picking 13th overall. They can get a decent player there, but I think their window to try to get in the playoffs is here. So I honestly think that I wouldn't be shocked if they traded this pick for an impact player that can come in right away. I would say most likely like a top 4 defenseman would be kind of the target here. Now, would they maybe offer that pick to Buffalo for Byram? I don't know that Buffalo really needs another first rounder because they're in the same boat, but maybe they flip that to somebody else, or something like that. But there's assets there like that could be used. But I think they're going to be in tough. I mean, if they keep the pick, you're looking at guys like maybe Carter Bear, Radim Murtka, maybe Malcolm Spence. Hard to say who's available with that pick. So I wouldn't be shocked, like I said, if they traded it. But there's not a ton of top-end players in free agency that kind of make a lot of sense for them. They've kind of had some not-so-favorable contracts already done in the past there. So I'm not sure. I think most of Yzerman's moves are probably going to be done through the trade market, and it's just not going to be the easiest thing to do. So can they make this team better and really revamp the D-core, stabilize the goaltending, and maybe add another shot of scoring in the forward group? It's a lot. It really is a lot. And like I said, if you wouldn't have seen other teams really make such big strides this past year in that division, it might have been a little easier, but it's going to be tough. So, I mean, Yzerman's got a lot of, like I said, big checklist. He needs to try to move out a couple defensemen to get some new bodies in there. Ideally, like a couple top 4D, in my opinion. And you need a little bit more depth up front, too. So it's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all, but they have some interesting times ahead in Detroit to see if they can't get into contention for the playoffs next year. Let me know your thoughts and expectations for the Red Wings in the comments below. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.